Lisa Carter walked slowly through the cemetery, her hands gripping a bouquet of white lilies. The autumn air was crisp, and the trees swayed gently, their golden leaves falling onto the stone paths. It had been 3 months since her husband, Mark, passed away, but the pain still felt fresh. She stopped in front of his gravestone and took a deep breath. The words carved into the stone made her chest tighten. Mark Carter, loving husband and friend. Tears filled her eyes as she knelt down and placed the flowers on the grave. "I miss you," she whispered, her voice shaky. "Why did you have to leave me?" As she wiped her tears, she noticed something unusual. A few feet away, a young black girl stood silently, staring at Mark's grave. She was small, maybe 10 years old, wearing a pink jacket and holding a stuffed bunny in her arms. Her dark eyes were filled with sadness, and she didn't move or speak. Lisa frowned. She had never seen this girl before. Who was she? Why was she here? Lisa hesitated before speaking. "Hello, sweetheart," she said gently. "Did you know my husband?" The girl nodded slowly, but didn't say anything. Lisa's heart pounded. She had never heard Mark mention any children other than their own, except they had never been able to have children. She had long accepted that painful truth. So, who was this girl? Taking a careful step forward, Lisa crouched down to meet the girl's gaze. "What's your name, honey?" The girl clutched her stuffed bunny tighter and whispered, "Ava." "Ava," Lisa repeated, her voice soft. "That's a beautiful name." She paused, trying to keep her voice calm. "Can you tell me how you knew Mark?" Ava looked down at the ground, then back up at Lisa. Her lips trembled as she spoke. "He was my daddy." Lisa felt like the world had stopped spinning. Her breath caught in her throat. She must have heard wrong. What did you say?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Ava sniffled. "He was my daddy," she repeated. "I miss him." Lisa felt dizzy, her mind racing with questions. This couldn't be true. Mark never had another child. At least, that's what she had always believed. He had been her husband for 25 years. They had shared everything, or so she thought. A sharp pain stabbed her chest as she forced herself to stay calm. Maybe there was some misunderstanding. Maybe this little girl was confused. Before Lisa could ask anything else, she heard footsteps behind her. She turned and saw a woman approaching. She was in her mid-30s, with deep brown skin and tired eyes. Her expression was tense as she placed a protective hand on Ava's shoulder. "I'm sorry," the woman said softly. "I didn't mean for her to speak to you." Lisa stared at the woman, her heart pounding. "Who are you?" she asked. The woman took a deep breath. "My name is Danielle Harper," she said. Then, after a brief pause, she added, "And Mark was Ava's father." Lisa felt like the ground beneath her feet had vanished. Her fingers turned cold, and her mind screamed that this wasn't real. But deep down she knew. The sadness in Ava's eyes, the protective stance of her mother, the hesitation in the woman's voice, it all felt too real. Her husband had a secret, and now, standing at his grave, Lisa was about to learn the truth. Lisa's fingers tightened around her coat as she stared at the woman in front of her. Mark was Ava's father. The words echoed in her mind, but she couldn't believe them. No, this had to be a mistake. She shook her head. "I don't understand," she said, her voice unsteady. "Mark never had a daughter. He would have told me." Danielle sighed, glancing down at Ava, who was still holding her stuffed bunny tightly. The little girl looked nervous, shifting from foot to foot. "I know this is hard to hear," Danielle said. "I didn't want you to find out like this, but it's the truth." Lisa's heart pounded. "No," she whispered. "That's not possible." Danielle reached into her purse and pulled out a small, worn photograph. She held it out. Lisa hesitated before taking it. Her breath caught in her throat. It was a picture of Mark, her Mark, smiling with his arm wrapped around a younger Danielle. In his other arm, he was holding a baby girl. Lisa's hands trembled. The picture felt like a knife to her heart. "I met Mark 12 years ago," Danielle said quietly. "He was on a business trip. We spent time together, and I got pregnant. When I told him, he was shocked. But he never abandoned us. He supported Ava, even if he couldn't be with us all the time." Lisa felt sick. 12 years ago, that meant Mark had been living this lie for more than a decade. "You're lying," Lisa said, her voice sharp. Mark wasn't like that. He wasn't a cheater. Danielle sighed. "I wish I were lying. I wish this wasn't real. But it is." She gently placed a hand on Ava's back. He loved Ava. He visited when he could. He sent gifts, paid for her school, made sure we were okay. Lisa's stomach twisted. If this was true, then Mark had lived a double life. He had pretended to be a loyal husband while keeping another family hidden. She turned to Ava, who was staring at her with wide, innocent eyes. The girl wasn't to blame for any of this. "Did you know about me?" Lisa asked softly. Ava shook her head. "Mom told me after he passed away," she whispered. "She said you were his wife. I wanted to see you." Lisa felt a lump in her throat. This little girl had lost her father too. She was grieving just like Lisa was. A cold wind blew through the cemetery, making Lisa shiver. She looked back at Mark's grave, feeling anger, sadness, and betrayal all at once. Finally, she took a deep breath and looked at Danielle. "Why didn't he tell me?" she asked. "If he loved her, if he wanted to be a father, why keep it a secret?" Danielle's face was full of sorrow. "Because he was afraid," she said. "Afraid of losing you. Afraid of breaking your heart." Lisa swallowed hard. Well, he had broken it now. She looked at Ava again. The girl's hands clutched the bunny tighter, her small face full of pain. Lisa didn't know what to do. She didn't know what to feel. All she knew was that her life would never be the same again. Lisa stood frozen, her heart pounding in her chest. The air around her felt heavy, like she was trapped in a bad dream. She kept staring at the photograph in her hands, the picture of Mark with Danielle and baby Ava. No matter how much she wanted to believe this was a mistake, the truth was right in front of her. Her husband had a secret, a huge one. Lisa looked up at Danielle, her eyes filled with anger and confusion. "Why are you here?" she asked, her voice shaking. Danielle took a deep breath, her face calm but sad. "I wanted Ava to know the truth. Mark was her father, and she deserves to understand who he was." She wanted to visit his grave. Lisa turned to Ava, who was standing quietly beside her mother, hugging her stuffed bunny. The little girl looked so small, so lost. It was clear she was hurting too. A mix of emotions swirled inside Lisa: anger at Mark, sadness for Ava, and frustration toward Danielle. "Why didn't you tell me before?" Lisa asked, her voice sharper now. "Why did you wait until after he was gone?" Danielle sighed. "Because Mark asked me not to," she admitted. "He said he would tell you one day, but he never did. I didn't want to cause trouble in your marriage. But now that he's gone, Ava has questions. I couldn't keep her from the truth anymore." Lisa clenched her fists. She had spent years loving Mark, trusting him. She had cried over him every night since he passed. And now she was finding out that the man she thought she knew had been living a double life. She felt sick. "I don't know what you expect from me," Lisa said bitterly. "Do you want my blessing? Do you want me to welcome you with open arms? Because I can't do that." Danielle shook her head. "I don't expect anything," she said. "I just wanted Ava to have a chance to say goodbye to her father." Lisa's eyes filled with tears. She turned back to Mark's gravestone, her emotions overwhelming her. She thought about all the moments they had shared, the vacations, the late-night talks, the way he used to hold her hand when they walked together. Had it all been a lie? Had he ever truly loved her? She felt betrayed, humiliated. But then, out of the corner of her eye, she saw Ava wiping her own tears. Lisa's heart softened, just a little. This wasn't Ava's fault. The little girl was just as much a victim of Mark's choices as she was. Taking a deep breath, Lisa bent down to Ava's level. "Did you love your dad?" she asked gently. Ava nodded, her lips trembling. "I miss him," she whispered. "I wanted to meet you because he talked about you sometimes." Lisa's chest tightened. "He did." Ava nodded again. "He said you were kind, that you made the best cookies." Lisa's breath caught in her throat. She used to bake cookies for Mark all the time. He always said they were his favorite. For the first time since this conversation started, Lisa didn't know what to say. Danielle placed a hand on Ava's shoulder. "We should go," she said softly. "I didn't mean to upset you." Lisa watched as Danielle took Ava's hand and started to walk away. But as they reached the cemetery gates, Ava turned back. "Goodbye, Mrs. Carter," she said in a small voice. Lisa stood there, her emotions in a storm. She had a choice to make. She could walk away from this child forever, or she could open a door she never expected. She wasn't sure what she would do yet, but something inside her whispered that this was only the beginning. Lisa stood in the cemetery long after Danielle and Ava left. The cold wind brushed against her skin, but she barely noticed. Her mind was racing. Mark had another family. The thought felt unreal. She had spent 25 years with him. They had shared a home, laughter, and dreams. She had trusted him completely. How could he have hidden something this big? Tears burned in her eyes as she turned away from the grave. She needed answers. When Lisa got home, the house felt different, like a stranger's place instead of her own. She walked into Mark's study, a room she rarely entered. His desk was still neat, his books lined up perfectly, just the way he had left them. But now she wondered, what else had he left behind? She started opening drawers, pulling out papers, flipping through old notebooks, bills, letters, receipts. Everything seemed normal. But then, at the back of a locked drawer, she found something strange. A small wooden box. Lisa's hands trembled as she opened it. Inside, there were old photos, letters, and a birth certificate. Her heart pounded as she looked at the paper. Ava Harper. Father, Mark Carter. Lisa let out a shaky breath. It was true. Mark hadn't just supported Ava from a distance. He had officially claimed her as his child. Tears blurred her vision as she picked up one of the letters. It was addressed to Danielle. "Danielle, I'm sorry I can't be there more often. You and Ava deserve better. I love her, and I want to be a good father, but I'm afraid of losing Lisa. I wish things were different. I wish I had the courage to tell the truth." Lisa's hands clenched around the paper, so Mark had known this was wrong. He had been too much of a coward to face the consequences of his choices. She pulled out more letters, messages to Ava, birthday cards he had never given her, little drawings of a girl with curly hair holding hands with a man who looked like Mark. A sob escaped Lisa's lips. She felt sick. She had spent so many years trying to be the perfect wife, standing by Mark's side, believing in their love. And now she was left with a broken heart and a stack of letters proving she hadn't really known the man she married. Lisa slammed the box shut. She needed air. She grabbed her coat and rushed outside, walking aimlessly through the streets. Her mind kept going back to Ava, her big, sad eyes, the way she clutched that stuffed bunny. The girl had lost her father, too. No matter how angry Lisa was, she couldn't ignore that. Before she knew it, she had stopped in front of a small cafe. Inside, through the window, she saw Danielle sitting at a table with Ava, stirring a cup of tea. Lisa hesitated. A part of her wanted to turn around and walk away. She didn't owe these people anything. But another part of her, a part she didn't quite understand, told her to step inside. Taking a deep breath, she pushed the door open. Danielle looked up, surprise flashing across her face. Ava's eyes widened. Lisa swallowed hard and forced herself to speak. "I found his letters." Danielle nodded slowly. "I figured you would." Lisa pulled out the small birth certificate and placed it on the table. He really was her father. Danielle looked at her with a mixture of pain and understanding. Yes, he was. Lisa took a shaky breath. "Tell me everything." Danielle's eyes softened. She reached for Ava's hand and gave Lisa a sad smile. "Okay," she said. "I will." Lisa sat across from Danielle and Ava in the small cafe. The air smelled like fresh coffee and warm bread, but Lisa barely noticed. Her hands rested on the table, fingers trembling slightly. She had spent 25 years thinking she knew everything about Mark. Now she was about to hear the truth, the part of his life he had kept hidden from her. Danielle took a deep breath before speaking. "I met Mark 12 years ago, like I told you. He was in Chicago for work. I was a waitress at a hotel restaurant." She gave a small, sad smile. "He was kind, funny. He made me laugh." Lisa's stomach twisted. She had always believed she was the only woman Mark ever loved. Hearing Danielle talk about him like this felt like a stab to the heart. I didn't know he was married at first, Danielle continued. He never wore a ring. He never mentioned a wife. We started seeing each other when he came to town. It wasn't serious at first, but then I got pregnant. Lisa's grip tightened around her coffee cup. When did he tell you about me? She asked, her voice quiet but firm. Danielle hesitated. After I told him about the baby, she admitted. That's when he finally confessed. He said he loved you, that he never wanted to hurt you, but he also didn't want to abandon his child. Lisa's breath caught in her throat. Mark had lied to her for years, yet he had also chosen to support Ava. What kind of man does that? Danielle continued, her voice softer now. He promised to take care of us. He sent money, paid for Ava's school, visited when he could, but he always said he couldn't leave you. Lisa swallowed the lump in her throat. Did you love him? Danielle sighed. At first, I thought I did, but after a while, I realized the truth. Mark wasn't really mine. He belonged to you. I was just part of his secret. Lisa looked down at Ava, who was stirring her hot chocolate quietly, her small hands wrapped around the mug. Did Mark love her? Lisa asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Danielle nodded. He did. He wasn't always around, but when he was, he made her feel special. He told her stories, brought her gifts, played games with her. She adored him. Lisa felt something shift inside her. A deep sadness, but also a strange sense of understanding. Mark had betrayed her, yes, but he had also loved this little girl. Ava looked up at Lisa suddenly. Did my daddy love you? She asked, her voice innocent but curious. Lisa blinked, caught off guard. She thought about all the moments she had shared with Mark. The laughter, the quiet nights, the way he had held her close when she cried. Yes, she said softly. I think he did. Ava smiled a little, then looked down at her drink again. For a long moment, none of them spoke. The truth was painful, but it was also something they all needed to face. Lisa took a deep breath. I don't know what happens next, she admitted. I don't know if I can ever forgive him, but I do know one thing. Danielle looked at her questioningly. Lisa glanced at Ava and then back at Danielle. She's a part of him, she said, and maybe I don't want to walk away from that. Danielle's eyes filled with surprise, and Ava looked up with hope in her gaze. For the first time since Mark's death, Lisa felt like she was taking control of her life again. Lisa wasn't sure what she had just said. The words had left her mouth before she even had time to think. She's a part of him, and maybe I don't want to walk away from that. Danielle looked at her with wide eyes, as if she hadn't expected this at all. Ava, still holding her stuffed bunny, tilted her head slightly. Really? Ava asked softly. Lisa hesitated for a moment. She had spent the last few days in shock, anger, and pain. Finding out that Mark had a secret daughter had shattered everything she believed about her marriage. But here, sitting across from this little girl, Lisa felt something new, something she hadn't expected. She felt the weight of responsibility. Ava hadn't done anything wrong. She hadn't chosen to be born into this situation. She had lost her father, just like Lisa had, and Lisa couldn't ignore that. Yes, Lisa said, nodding slowly. Really? Ava's lips curled into the smallest smile, and for the first time since their meeting, Lisa saw hope in her young eyes. Danielle took a deep breath. I didn't expect this, she admitted. I thought you'd want nothing to do with us. Lisa let out a shaky laugh. I thought so too, she said honestly. But I'd spent the last few days feeling like my whole life was a lie. I was angry at Mark for what he did. I still am. But none of that is Ava's fault. Danielle nodded. No, it's not. Lisa looked down at her coffee cup. I don't know what this means, she said carefully. I don't know what kind of relationship we can have, or if we can even have one at all, but I don't want to just pretend Ava doesn't exist. Ava's eyes lit up. Does that mean we can be friends? Lisa hesitated. She had never thought about being a mother. She and Mark had never had children together. She wasn't sure if she could even fill that kind of role in Ava's life. But maybe, just maybe, she could be something. Lisa gave a small smile. I think we can start with that. Eva grinned, and for the first time, Lisa felt a warmth spread through her heart. Danielle exhaled slowly. I don't want to push you into anything, Lisa, she said. I know this is a lot to take in. If you need time. I do, Lisa interrupted. I need time to figure things out, but I don't want to shut the door completely. Danielle smiled. That's more than I expected. Lisa glanced at Ava again. Can I ask you something? Ava nodded eagerly. What do you remember most about your dad? Lisa asked. Ava's face lit up. He used to tell me stories before bed, she said. Stories about faraway places, about adventures, and brave heroes. Lisa chuckled softly. That sounds like Mark. Ava's smile grew. He said he told you stories too. Lisa felt her heart tighten. He had told Eva about her. Even though he had kept his secrets, he had still connected their lives in small ways. Lisa reached for her coat and stood up. I need some time to process all of this, she said. But maybe we can meet again. Ava's eyes sparkled with excitement. Yes. Can we, Mom? Danielle nodded. Of course. Lisa turned to Ava. I don't know where this will go, but I think your dad would have wanted us to know each other. Ava beamed, and for the first time in days, Lisa felt like she was stepping toward something new. Something unexpected. Something that just might heal her broken heart. Lisa wasn't sure what to expect when she agreed to meet Danielle and Ava again. A part of her still felt uneasy, like she was stepping into a world she didn't belong to. But another part, one she didn't fully understand, told her she was doing the right thing. So a week later, she found herself standing outside a small park, waiting. The air was crisp, and the trees swayed gently in the breeze. Lisa held her coat tightly around her as she spotted Danielle and Eva walking toward her. Ava was the first to notice Lisa. Her face lit up, and she waved excitedly. Lisa smiled and waved back. Why does that make me feel happy? Danielle greeted Lisa with a nod. I wasn't sure if you'd come, she admitted. Lisa let out a small breath. I wasn't sure either, she said honestly. Eva reached out and took Lisa's hand without hesitation. Lisa stiffened at first, surprised by the sudden touch, but when she looked down at Ava's hopeful face, something inside her softened. Come on, Ava said, pulling her toward the playground. Let's sit on the swings. Lisa chuckled. All right, slow down. The three of them walked together, and for the first time, Lisa felt something strange, something peaceful. She had spent so much time feeling angry, betrayed, and confused. But here, with Ava's small hand in hers, those feelings seemed to fade, even if just for a moment. They sat on the swings, gently rocking back and forth. Ava kicked her legs excitedly, her eyes filled with joy. Daddy used to push me on the swings, she said suddenly. Lisa's hands tightened on the chains. He did. Ava nodded. Yeah, he said I was his little rocket, flying into the sky. Lisa felt a lump in her throat. That sounded exactly like something Mark would say. Danielle gave a small smile. She loved those moments with him. Lisa looked at Ava. You miss him, don't you? Ava's smile faded slightly, and she nodded. A lot. Lisa took a deep breath. I do too. For the first time, they shared their grief. It wasn't just about betrayal anymore. It was about loss. Mark had made mistakes, but they had all loved him in their own way. Ava suddenly jumped off the swing and ran toward a nearby bench. She grabbed something from a small backpack and ran back to Lisa, holding out a picture. It was a drawing. In the picture, there were three people, Ava, Danielle, and Lisa. Lisa's breath caught in her throat. What's this? Ava grinned. It's us, she said proudly. I made it last night. I want you to be part of my family. Lisa's heart ached. She wasn't sure if she could ever truly accept Mark's past. She wasn't sure what her relationship with Danielle would be. But looking at Ava's hopeful face, she realized something. This little girl had lost a father, and maybe, just maybe, Lisa could help fill a small part of that empty space. She gently took the picture and smiled. It's beautiful, Ava. Ava beamed. Danielle watched quietly, tears in her eyes. Thank you for giving her a chance, she whispered. Lisa looked at Ava, then at Danielle. Maybe she wasn't just stepping into Mark's hidden world. Maybe she was building something new. Lisa sat on the park bench, holding Ava's drawing in her hands. The bright colors and simple shapes made her smile. It wasn't just a picture, it was an invitation into Ava's life, an invitation into something new. She had spent weeks drowning in grief, betrayal, and anger. But now, sitting here with Ava's hopeful eyes looking up at her, she realized something important. She had a choice. She could walk away and pretend none of this ever happened. She could go back to her quiet, lonely life, carrying the weight of Mark's secrets forever. Or she could open her heart to something different. Maybe she didn't have to erase the past to move forward. Maybe she could find a way to heal. Lisa took a deep breath and smiled at Ava. "So," she said, "what do you like to do for fun?" Ava's face lit up. "I love painting, and I like baking cookies with my mom." Lisa chuckled. "Cookies, huh? What's your favorite kind?" "Chocolate chip," Ava said, grinning. Lisa pretended to think. "Mum, I don't know. Oatmeal raisin might be better." Ava gasped dramatically. "No way. Chocolate chip is the best." Lisa laughed. It felt good, really good, to smile again. Danielle watched them quietly, her eyes filled with emotion. "I never thought this would happen," she admitted. "I never thought you'd want to be part of Ava's life." Lisa looked at her. "I didn't think so either," she said honestly. "But I've realized something. Mark may have lied to me, but he didn't lie about loving Ava, and I think I want to get to know her." Danielle smiled softly. "She'd like that." Ava reached out and held Lisa's hand. "Does this mean we're friends now?" Lisa squeezed her tiny fingers. "Yes," she said. "I think it does." Ava beamed. The three of them sat together, watching the children play in the park. For the first time since Mark's death, Lisa felt like she wasn't just surviving, she was moving forward. Maybe she and Danielle would never be close. Maybe there would always be some pain in her heart when she thought of Mark. But she wasn't alone. She had found a connection she never expected. And maybe, just maybe, that was the start of something beautiful. The end.